To us, magic sounds like this extraordinary thing, pulling a rabbit out of the hat, coming out of nowhere. But it's here, it's real, and the more that we are open to the unseen, to the energies of this world, to abundance and manifesting, to calling in and growing, the more we'll be able to call magic into our lives. Join me as I share stories, wisdom, and curiosity around connecting with your higher frequency, tapping into the synchronicities of the universe, and opening up to the unseen possibilities that this world has to offer. I am your host, Dayna Faye, and this is the Ordinary Magic Podcast. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Ordinary Magic. This is Dayna here, and I am so excited to be graced with Tina's presence today. Tina C. Hines. She is a fifth-generation healer, intuitive, clairvoyant, medium, and empath. But beyond those titles, she is a devoted mother, a seeker of truth, and a guide for those who are ready to embrace their innate gifts and step into their power. Since 2010, she has been on a mission to support intelligent, driven, and ambitious women as they navigate the realms of intuition, energy, and self-discovery. Many of the incredible individuals she has worked with share a common thread, a deep desire to understand themselves on a profound level and to harness their unique abilities for personal growth and fulfillment. That sounds amazing, Tina.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I love this work. I love the work that I do that allows me to help women around the globe.
So, Tina, in preparation for our discussion today, I was looking at some of your work, and I had read that it was actually your struggle with clinical depression that was your wake-up call that brought you to a deeper exploration of yourself and connected you to your intuitive gifts. Did that happen while you were working your corporate job, or kind of bring us back to how that all kicked off for you?
I always like to joke around and say, I was minding my business in corporate America when. So it was actually triggered because I'm an only child and my mom had suffered a ruptured cerebral aneurysm. And I had to leave my home in New Jersey to go take care of her in Georgia. And in the midst of all of that, I realized that I was so busy taking care of everyone else that I forgot to take care of myself. So I was taking care of my mom. I had a teenage son that I was responsible for. I was supporting a CEO in a foundation. So all of these moving pieces were happening. And when I returned home from taking care of my mom, I was depleted. I was drained. But I still had to keep going because I was away from home for a month and a half. I was away from my job for a month and a half. And like some of us do, we go through the motions. I was going through the motions of getting up, getting ready for work, going to the office. Never really remember how you get there, but you're on autopilot, trying to go to work. And it wasn't until one day my CEO asked a question that was like literally the trigger for it. By trade, she is a physician, and we were crossing paths because she was going in her office and I was leaving, and she goes, "Tina, are you okay?" And the knee-jerk reaction always is, "I'm fine," because we didn't want the follow-up question. I didn't feel like answering any questions. But as soon as I said, "I'm fine," and crossed the threshold, I stopped, I turned around and looked at her and I said, "I'm not fine. And it's taken every ounce of strength for me not to ball up into the fetal position and crawl under my desk and cry."
Wow. What was kind of your next step after that?
So she and I talked for a little bit, and she said, "So what is it that you need?" And I thought about it, and in my mind, but I didn't want to say it out loud, but people often joke like, "Tina, the bubble over your head has a voice." Like, the bubble over my head has a voice. They were like, "Yeah, you know how you see the cartoons and there's a bubble and they're thinking things? The bubble over your head has a voice." And I said, "I need to go away." I go, in this moment, I don't want to be your assistant. I don't want to be my son's mother. I don't want to be my mother's daughter. I don't want to be everything to everybody. I simply want to be. And she said, "Okay, so go away." And I go, "I can't go away. I've been gone for a month and a half. I just got back." And what she said gave me permission. She said, "I'd rather have a whole Tina than a half of a Tina. So make the plans for whatever it is that you need to do to go away." And I reached out to my friends who were being supportive of me as I was working with my mom to make sure my son was okay. And I booked a plane ticket to Anguilla, British West Indies to do some soul searching. And I didn't know what I was searching for, but I knew I was searching for something. And it was in that space where I got my first taste of my gift as an energy healer and a clairvoyant. And then when I returned home, a friend invited me to do one of Deepak Chopra's 21-day meditations. And I'm processing that and I'm thinking, these people are crazy. They're trying to pull me into a cult because they're all in my ear. Because I had not ever thought about meditation. So I like to say meditation saved lives, mine and other people's. Then therapy. I had went through about 4 therapists before I found the right one. And so in tandem, I'm doing the meditation. I found therapy, and I just started doing a lot of holistic work as well. And that was great because it helped me understand the clinical side of what I was experiencing, as well as the metaphysical side of what I was experiencing as well. Because my concern was, am I going crazy or am I really seeing people who have transitioned? And my therapist was the person who helped me be comfortable with that, because I had a Reiki practitioner that I was working with as well. And it took probably about 3 or 4 sessions before I shared with my therapist. And I go, I need to share something with you, but you can't put me in the hospital. That was the thing. You can't put me in the hospital. And he goes, okay, Tina, are you going to hurt anybody? I said, no, I'm too pretty for jail. That's what I said. And he goes, are you going to hurt yourself? And I go, no, I love myself. Why would I hurt myself? He goes, okay, then I won't put you in the hospital, I don't think. What is going on? And I say, well, I've been seeing my grandmother and her sister and my great grandmother and this other person. And he goes, oh, that's beautiful. I go, it is? He goes, yeah. I said, okay. I said, wait a minute. They're dead. And he goes, they're dead? I was like, yeah, they're dead. He goes, that's lovely, Tina. And I go, I'm not crazy. He goes, no, you're not crazy. And then I was like, okay, now I got a sense of relief. And even though we focused on the clinical side, we didn't dip into the metaphysical space as we were working together during our time. It made me feel safe. And he and I would meditate before our sessions, which I loved even more because I knew that he was someone who was going to get it versus trying to fill me up with pills from here and pills from there. And that part of it was the epitome of my own personal transformation as well as my healing.
That is such a great story, Tina. And I just love that you kept on going. I feel like so many have that story of trying to find a therapist that they really like. And it does. It takes like 4 therapists to find the one that's right for you. So for those of you who are listening to Tina's story, like she didn't quit after the 3rd one that wasn't working. Like you made it to a 4th therapist, and it sounds like he was absolutely amazing.
Yes. I adored him so much that as we worked together, I did get to a point where I felt like I needed medication, because I was like, there's something that still feels a little bit off for me. I am not 100% me. And I kept saying, I want the old Tina back because I don't know who the heck this Tina is. Aww. And he was like, well, Tina, you're getting an upgraded version of yourself. And I'm like, I don't like her. She cries all the damn time. But when I decided that, I was like, I think I need something to help regulate because there's too much going on. He really sat with me and talked with me about it to make sure that I was certain. And then what was great was when I decided that, yes, I'm going to do medication, I also said, but I have a goal. And the goal is not to stay on it. I just need it to get me over this hump. But I don't want to stay here consistently being medicated. And that was great because he, along with my primary physician, they worked in tandem together. And it was like, we're going to work on this. And as you're working on it, here's what we're going to do. And in doing that, it allowed me to be very transparent about everything that I was experiencing and for them to help me to get to a place where I was well. And the day did come, and my primary was like, okay, we're celebrating. Today's the day you no longer need your medication. And I'm like, yay. And we start weaning off. And therapy goes, okay, we're celebrating. This is your last session with us. And I go, no, it's not. No, it's not. And he goes, Tina, you worked very hard on all of these things and you've overcome these challenges. So I think that you're good in a good space. I said, no, I'm not. And I kept telling him, I says, you know how I had to be weaned off the drugs? Well, we're going to have to do that same process with me and you. So we'll go from every week to every 2 weeks, from every 2 weeks to every 3 weeks. We're going to wean me off of you because I need this outlet. And I always felt like it was a safe space. I have friends that I love dearly that I can lean on whenever I need to. However, I also know that I need that safe space and I need someone to ask me deep, thought-provoking questions that make me just sit with it and explore a little bit deeper what that experience is meaning and what's triggering it and anything else that may be going on. And my friends are not going to do that. I mean, my friends hold me accountable for a lot of things, but I needed someone who was going to go to another level. I was open and willing and ready to go to that next level. So when I say I found the best therapist for me, I truly did. And even as I'm coaching, when I coach women and we do our intake interview, I share with them the reason for this intake interview is for me to understand if the support you need is therapeutic or coaching, because there is a fine line that I don't cross. However, there can be occasions where you can do a combination, but I need to be sure of that. And when I'm encouraging you to get a therapist, I want you to do your due diligence about it. Don't accept the first one if you're feeling like they're not hearing you or they're not listening to you. Make the decision that you're going to explore a little bit more. You don't have to settle. It's a choice. And I do that with my coaching programs as well.
That makes me feel like, again, there's no mistake that the universe had you go through that experience yourself first, knowing that you would one day become a coach and have that experience firsthand to really be in alignment as a coach and support the women that are coming to you.
What's so interesting about that, Dayna, is I tell that to people all the time. I says the journey that we go through is not always for ourselves. The journey is for the person who's going to come to us and ask us for their support or guidance. And we never know. And it seems like whenever I'm having some challenges, I'm like, I'm going to meet somebody within 2 weeks who's in this same space. It's guaranteed that it's going to happen. And the consistency of it, like as I'm meeting individuals and I meet a lot of people on social media, they're sitting to me like, it's almost like you know me. Like I've been here before. And I was like, I understand a lot. I'm an observer and I observe behaviors and I hear what you don't say more than what you do say.
Wow. I love that. So once you were through your experience with your therapist, and it sounds like you were doing a lovely blend of Western and Eastern medicine, which is just so amazing. Like you mentioned, you were doing the Reiki sessions. What was your journey like with connecting more with your metaphysical abilities, like being able to see people who've passed on?
So what's so interesting about that, it's funny because I was just having a conversation with someone about my gifts, and my Reiki girl, whom I love dearly, played an integral role in me understanding and embracing my gift, allowing herself to explain what certain experiences that I was having, what it meant. And for me, I felt that, okay, in order for me to improve and develop this gift, I have to go take a class. I have to do all of these things that in normal world that we think that we need to do. But what was so interesting as I was trying to develop my mediumship side, every time I would go to a class, something would happen that I would never go back after the first class, whatever the trigger was. And I channel sometimes too. And I would have these conversations with my great great grandmother, who is my spirit guide, that I've never had the pleasure of physically meeting. But luckily, I've had a family member who showed me who she was and who also helped me understand that, again, I wasn't crazy and that it runs in our family. And one day I'm preparing to go rest for the night, and I hear my great great grandmother speaking to me. And for some reason, I woke up and I grabbed my phone because I'm like, I need to record this because this is like unbelievable. I had my recorder on and I started going back to sleep, and I can hear the conversation between she and I. And when I went to listen to the replay, I could actually hear my voice changing between she and I, as well as she's asking me questions and I'm reiterating the questions as I'm answering it. One of the things that she said was, I did not go to a class. I did not have the opportunity to go to a class. And that is the exact same way we want you to learn. You learn by doing. We don't want you in a class. We don't want you reading all these extra books. We want you to learn by doing. And I'm like, well, I still need something. And I ended up I started doing, and I started asking people, doing it for free, asking people, can I share what I see? Do you feel comfortable enough? Because even as I'm a full-time practitioner for the past 14 years, I never just jump up and say, oh, guess what I see for you? And I see something and I'm hearing these messages. I need to have permission, because not everyone feels comfortable with this metaphysical side. So my thing is, I always want people to feel comfortable when I'm sharing the information. Rarely is it anything negative. My visions typically go back to the past emotional trauma that has been experienced. It doesn't see negativity that's going to happen going forward, which is why I always tell people, not all psychics are treated equal. Our gifts operate differently. And even when I'm doing my mediumship, I get different snippets of people. All of my clairs work, my sense of smell, hearing, feeling, all of them are heightened at different levels. I always like to share the story of this one woman that I met when I was doing a retreat in Anguilla. And she overheard me talking about my gift as we're on the ferry going from St. Martin to Anguilla. And when we get off the boat, she leans over and she goes, I overheard your conversation and I would love for you to come and do a reading for me. And I'm like, well, here's my card, schedule something and I'll show up at your villa. And typically the night before, I call it talking to the angels reading, that loved one comes to me the night before. So they give me little signals of who they are. So before I start my session, I can tell my client. So the night before, this woman, I'm going to start out saying she's a woman, comes to me. She's dancing and I keep seeing her swaying at the foot of my bed, and she's wearing a red bandana on her head. So the next day I go to read my client and I go, before we start, this is what happened last night. I'm like, there's this woman, she came, she was dancing. I don't know why she kept swaying at the foot of my bed, and she was wearing a red bandana on her head. And so my client goes, oh, okay. She doesn't say anything. I proceed to do her reading, and some things are coming to the surface for her. And she goes, when we finish, I have something to show you. And I'm like, okay, great. So I continue with the rest of her reading. And then she goes, okay, let me get my phone. She pulls up her phone and she shows me a video. And the video is of her and her mother dancing. She has a red bandana on her head because her mother was at the time working through chemotherapy for cancer. And that was the last dance that they had together. And she says, there's no way you would have known that. I'm like, I don't even know you. Like, you were a person on the boat. She says, I didn't know if I was going to fall down and cry when you walked in and shared that with me, because I was like, oh my gosh, how did she know that? And so it's little things like that. I can take on sometimes the mannerisms of the loved ones who have transitioned, any little indicators that will let you know who this person is. Because even though you may say, I want my mother to come through, it may be your mother, your grandmother, your aunt, your friend's mother. It may be all of those people, and one of them is the person who's designated to speak at that time.
Yeah, thank you for those insights. That's such a cool story. And I just love every mediumship story I hear where like the person was maybe a little bit skeptical, and then you share one thing where they're like, there's no way. There's no way you could have known about that.
Yeah, it's amazing. I'm still amazed to this day. I sometimes question myself. I'm like, how did I know that? Like, I shouldn't know that. Like, why? And I've gotten to the point now where it's been so long that I'm like, why not? Some people have always known they've had a gift since they were a child. I didn't find out till I was 40. So it's like, I'm just navigating this the best way to how I understand it. It wasn't talked about in my family, and it's still not talked about as much because it makes some people uncomfortable. But I know that the work that my grandmothers have done in their everyday life, my grandmother, my mother, who's still alive, she used to be a nurse helping people. Her mother used to work for women, infant, and children, helping people. Their mother, she used to be the wife of a minister, helping in the missionary. So it's like always passed down. So there's no such thing as coincidence. When people talk about the gift, I'm like, listen, I can show you the proof, and I got receipts to prove it. What I also loved as I was understanding my gift is that my grandmother had journals. My grandmother had 3 journals because my grandmother was a dreamer. And I had the pleasure of reading those journals when I was trying to understand what was going on with me. And that was one of the best rewarding pieces of her that I could have ever received.
I love that your grandmother kept journals and that you kept your history alive. That makes me motivated to do the same and to even look into my history because I have no idea. And I really, Tina, thank you so much for sharing your story about the fact that like you weren't, quote, born that way, because I am also channeling for people and I worked on mediumship, but I've kind of put it to the side because again, like when I do it with my teacher, there's no doubt I'm bringing these souls forward who have transitioned. And then when I'm by myself, I have some limiting beliefs, right? So when I'm in session with people and I channel and something does come forward unexpected, that's amazing because then it's just so organic and it's not, there's no pressure on me. But I really love, because I think even I've received the message before of like, stop watching other mediums, like work on your craft yourself. It was like similar to what you said about like, don't read all the books, don't take all the classes. But I want to shake my guides when I get that message because I'm like, but how? Just tell me how. And I know it's in the doing and the space. And we live in a society that doesn't really value slowing down or taking space. Have you changed your lifestyle completely now? Do you live in a different way where you have more space in your life?
The one thing that depression reminded me of was you have to take care of yourself before you take care of everybody else. And it allowed me to be more intentional about my needs. I operate from a place, I can do it all. And spirit is like, no, you can't. Sit your tail down. And, as you know, I currently live in Morocco. And a few days after relocating to Morocco, I suffered a mild heart attack. And that experience in itself was an eye-opener of allow people to support you and help you. Allow yourself to experience being soft versus your alpha energy showing up all the time. And so now I'm much more intentional about my boundaries. I'm much more intentional about my no being a complete sentence. I need to make sure my well-being is okay. It has become more important than everyone else before me, including the person I birthed. Because if I can't be okay, I can't take care of everyone else. And I'm practicing what I preach. And that is very important because as I'm encouraging women to reclaim their power and be unapologetic about it, I'm also doing the exact same thing. I'm reclaiming my power and I'm unapologetic about I can't do that and I don't want to do that. And if it doesn't serve my higher good, it's not getting done.
And what do most of your women clients come to you? You mentioned before that you oftentimes can kind of see the energy behind past experiences that they have. Do you tend to have a similar archetype of a client that comes to you that you guys kind of work on something specific in that regard?
It has variations of narcissistic relationships, feelings of abandonment, fears, rational or irrational, and past trauma. More recently, I was teaching a class and there were so many similarities of experiences with the mother wound and needing that nurturing that they may have missed out on for whatever reason. And one of the things that I encourage the women that I work with in the midst of honoring that feeling, that emotion that they're experiencing, how they can also use that as their power so they don't stay stuck in that space and helping them to be able to move forward. Yes, that happened. We can't change it, but how do we grow from it so we can live a more healthier, fulfilling, and happy life?
Do you have them kind of go back and reparent themselves and kind of nurture themselves in a way?
I do. I like to say I like to make life simplistic because we definitely overcomplicate things in our head. And there are variations of exercises that we do. I do a little bit of shadow work with them as well. And one of the assignments that they have a love-hate relationship with is when I have them do this why assignment that allows them to dive deep into the root of whatever this experience that they had, what role it is playing in their life. And I share with them, we're going to the root, not to stay there, but to get what you need to pull it out. Many times we do fear going back to our past because it's going to trigger something within us. But the goal is not to stay there and live there. The goal is to understand what was happening in that space, what you had no control over in that moment in order for you to be able to move forward.
Yeah. And it's almost like, I think oftentimes when there's an uncomfortable feeling, we tend to numb or shy away from it. But you're having your clients go fully there to be in it and then move on from it. And I think that's what's necessary in order to kind of transmute that.
Yeah. A lot of times when people share with me, well, I know what happened. I was there. And I go, I know you were there and I wasn't. But can you take me back there? Because there are certain questions that I want to ask you. And my questions are often spirit led. And they'll say to me, well, what made you ask me that question? I says, because this is what I heard. And I'm trying to understand that this happened to you, but this is also what I heard. And I want to help you understand it a little bit better so it can make sense to you. So you know how to apply or start thinking differently. Because if you keep operating from, I like to say, a not so positive versus the word negative, because I'm consistently changing up my language.
Mm-hmm.
I want to operate in a space that's positive. So I'm going to consistently use positive words around myself and with the people that I'm engaging with so I can infuse that peace and positivity within. If I keep operating in the dark, negative space, that's where I'm going to continually live. That place is uncomfortable and it doesn't make you feel good.
Yeah. And did you have the experience when your gifts started coming online that you could actually feel the frequency of words more? And it's almost like jarring when you hear, like, when a word has kind of a negative energy behind it.
My shift in words, it didn't happen as quickly. And I can't even remember what was the trigger for it. But something kept telling me, like, if we keep talking about we want peace, you have to find out what's disrupting your peace. And as an empath, what was disrupting my peace was types of conversations that were not conducive to my well-being, arguments not conducive to my well-being, I used to love Law and Order. I can't even watch Law and Order now because I become so emotional with it. Even though I know that I'm like, I've seen that episode 4 times. Why am I crying this time? But there were certain things like I stopped watching TV. I don't want to feed something that is not good for the soul. And so you definitely start paying attention to behaviors. And are these behaviors self-defeating? If they are, why are you allowing them to stay around?
Oh, I love that. And for those of you listening, if you're like, what are you and Tina talking about? It's like a chicken and an egg thing. Start to maybe stop watching violent TV or stop, I don't know, saying things in negative ways and see how that kind of increases your consciousness or increases your awareness. And on the flip side, the more that you become self-aware and meditate and do yoga and like just are on this journey, it will happen to you where all of a sudden, like you said, hey, I've watched Law and Order 4 times. Like why is this happening now? I don't know. I can just, you're an empath. You're just, your frequency, like you can just feel the energies behind it that much greater.
Another thing that's also important to remind people, and this is something we just shared a few minutes ago. We're so busy comparing ourselves to others. And we're like, oh, I'm supposed to be like them. When you're on your journey of healing, whatever your healing looks like for you, you should not be comparing yourself to other people because you don't know all of the things and the challenges that they have overcome in that process of their healing. And you may find another activity or another book that works best for you that didn't work for somebody else. And that is why I'm always encouraging when you're trying to get over a behavior and someone says, well, go do this. And you're like, I don't like doing that. Well, find what works for you. You don't have to be the norm and do what everybody else does. If you find that crocheting brings you peace versus meditation brings another person peace, well, go crochet if that's what does it for you. Find what works for you instead of trying to place yourself in a hole with everybody else, because it's challenging to get out of that rabbit hole. But when you do eventually get out of it, connect with whatever it is that helped you get out of it and continue doing it, because that's what got you out of it. It's like when people say the doctor gives you medicine and the medicine makes you feel better after you take it for 2 days, but he gave you a 7-day prescription. And you're like, but I feel good. Well, why do you feel good? Because the doctor gave you the medicine. Continue it for the 7 days. You don't stop it because the pain stopped. The same thing when we are working on our healing, mind, body, spirit. When you start implementing certain tools and resources, consistently do them because that's what got you to that healthy, happier space.
What's one of your favorite resources for your body?
I am a meditator twice a day. I do a midday meditation with Native American flute music where I just sit in stillness here. And then at night before I slumber, I usually release a few words or a lot of words in my journal. And then I do guided meditation. I usually do like a 30-minute one that I only hear about 15 minutes of it because I have gone into a deep slumber. And I get the best rest, not just sleep, but rest when I do my guided meditations at night. And it doesn't matter what time I go to bed. This morning I went to bed at 2:00 because I was working on a project. I still did my guided meditation because it's an integral part of my well-being and me staying in this healthy space.
Yeah, that's disciplined. Okay, I'm just so curious then. What do you do in the morning after you wake up? Anything?
I'm a slow wake-upper. I don't jump up and get out the bed. I'm truly not that person. And I tell people all the time, I'm like, don't jump up and get out of the bed. I open my eyes because in Morocco, they have the call to prayer at like 5:05. And I'm usually up before I hear the call to prayer. And I just lay in my bed in stillness. And sometimes I am processing what I'm going to do in the next hour. Or sometimes I'm just laying there in stillness, listening to the sounds of nature. And I'm simply being before I start my day. And no 2 days are alike because there are days when I want to work at my home office. And there are days where I like to go to little cafes and do work, depending on the spaces that I am in. Like yesterday, I did a couple of things here. And then I went to this beautiful place out near the mountains and just sat for a couple of hours. So no days are the same for me. And just starting out, I like peace. I like peaceful wake ups.
Not the annoying alarm clock sound and jumping straight out of bed. Done with that corporate world.
I don't even know the last time I used an alarm clock, to be honest with you, because I just don't. My phone has been on silence for years. Like, I don't even have my phone ring loud because it's been on silent mode for years.
Before we wrap up, Tina, I'm just so curious. I just thank you so much for sharing your story today. It's so cool taking you from this corporate world and then just like having this life-changing moment, which kudos to having like an amazing boss who said they'd rather have a whole you than a half you. That is amazing. And then you went on this spiritual journey, and it really seems like you're in your purpose, your dharma, you're working with clients and using all of your gifts, your coaching abilities, your intuitive gifts, and the gifts of your life experiences, which is so cool. That is just so cool to see where life has taken you, and to remind all of us that we don't know what's going to happen in our future, and to just really flow with the beauty of life, because that's really neat.
Yes, I love it. I absolutely love it.
Thank you so much, Tina. Where can everyone find you if they'd like to connect with you?
So the first place you can connect with me is on my website, which is my name, TinaCHines.com. And as for social media, probably I'm more on TikTok than I am any other platform. So between TikTok and Instagram, you can find me on social media as well. I like to go live on TikTok and answer people's questions. But yeah, those are the two places, TikTok and Instagram. But my website is the first stop.
Okay, amazing. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Ordinary Magic is a Lit Path Studios production, produced by Jamie Gale and Dayna Faye. Music is by Shane Ivers. Until next time, I wish you many powerful moments of ordinary magic.